Welcome back. This is Beyond the Box Score. I just saved in live time a technical difficulty. I was on the wrong mic, but we're on the right mic now. It's Beyond the Box Score. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Jacob Gibbs. This is Beyond the Box Score as part of Fantasy Football Today. You guys know us from last year doing these shows with Adam, and now we've got our own show. But we need your help to get this show off the ground. Hopefully, you've been listening to the show the last few weeks. We had 3 sleeper episodes last week. Yesterday, we had busts, players we want to avoid. I wouldn't call them all busts, just players we want to avoid, Jacob. And today, we'll be talking about breakouts. And we had one rule for today. That one rule that Jacob came up with so eloquently was no rookies, because Jacob and I love rookies, and we talk about rookies every show. So today's breakouts will feature no rookies. It's just going to be players, veterans. And one thing I will ask of you, if you do enjoy the show, we need your help. Haven't been thrilled with your help. No, I'm kidding. You guys are doing the best job, and we need to keep that up by hitting the like button and leaving a comment. The key thing you can do to help get the show off the ground is liking and commenting on the show. That's all we'll ever ask, but it makes a massive difference in getting this show up the algorithm. And other than that, we're going to get right into this thing with our breakouts, our 10 fantasy breakouts. Now, here's how we did this thing. I let Jacob come up with his, and I will debate if I agree or disagree on any of these breakouts. And I'm hoping, Jacob, that I have some disagreements today. Time will tell. How you doing today, my friend? Can we get into our first breakout?
I'm great. Yeah. And I just want to, people seem to think that I'm a nice guy. I don't know what that is, but there's been some discourse in the comments that Dan is, bully, take your lunch guy. And I'm like this nice little nerd, which is fair, the way I present myself. But I'm just going to say, like, they are busts. We did a bust show and they're bad picks. Their picks were not taking at their ADP because we want other people. And also do better in the comments. Do better. I want to challenge you. I want to call you out. Let's see what you can really do. I don't think you guys are matching how good the show is that Dan is putting up here as producer and host. Dan Schneier better than. I mean, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to.
No,
we'll just let the tennis results speak for themselves.
We're not getting into that right now. It's match day is tomorrow. And for those who have been paying attention, tomorrow, I'll be driving up because for some reason Adam gets all home matches to face off against Adam for a charity match for St. Jude, where you can still bid now to be on Team Schneier or Team Azer if you'd like. The winner of that bid gets a spot in the FFT Podcast Listeners League. You'll be co-managing with myself, or if you bid on Adam. And then we get draft advantages if I win and cover the spread. I, as a fair human being, decided to make this year different. Last year was just whoever wins the match gets these draft advantages if you're managing the team. I knew if we did that again, we'd have thousands of bids on myself and none bids on Adam. So I won 6-2-6-0 last year, though he has played 4 times a week, Jacob, and I only play golf at this point for the most part. So this year I have a spread I have to cover. Adam needs to win 5 games or more in a span of 2 sets, or 3, I guess, if he wins a set somehow. And then he covers the spread and I lose the spread and I lose. So that'll be a lot of fun. Tomorrow you can catch that live stream at 4:30. I'm very excited for it, Jacob. But let's talk breakouts now. Let's get into your first player. And I love this player because this is a player who, going into draft season, I had some skepticism on. And now I find myself all in on him as well, to the point where in my first auction draft 2 nights ago, I paid the price to draft this player in a $200 Superflex league at $26, and I felt good about that value. So who is that player?
It's Chase Brown. Yeah, we've got a great show coming for you guys. Breakouts, true breakouts. Basically every single one of them is an age or a year 3 or 4 guy. Like I wanted to put Darnell Mooney in it, but we were real strict about this. Dan brought up Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is one of 11 receivers to have 1,000 yards in each of the 2 past seasons. I feel like he's so slept.
Doesn't fair to be calling him a breakout. I'm with that.
It's crazy where he goes in drafts. But Chase Brown, it's real simple with Chase Brown. He was insane last year in terms of the usage. We really don't see anything like this. Chase Brown was RB9 in expected fantasy points with half a season as a backup. He was RB9 overall at the running back position in expected fantasy points. So XFP, what I'm referencing is from Fantasy Points data. In the data suite, you can see they've got a bell cow report, and they quantify every touch, every opportunity based on where it came on the field, like how likely it was to score a touchdown, all of that, and then give corresponding fantasy point value. And he was RB9 on the season. And from week 9 on, when he got the starting job, his XFP number was 22.4
Hmm.
per game. During the time that they have the data available, so dating back to 2021, they've been doing this XFP metric. CMC is the only running back to hit 20 plus, and that was at 20.1. So there's a regression. We're not going to see, a 22.4 XFP number over the full season, but the fact that he could even get to that number over half of a season is really remarkable and speaks to just how fruitful this RB role has been in Cincinnati. So I'm going to share my screen here. I've got, over the past 5 years, we've got a 4-way tie for fantasy points per running back target. And it's the Bills, which is a bit surprising, but their number is really low in terms of the total number of targets. So the real gold mines here have been, as expected, the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid,
Mm-hmm.
the 49ers with Kyle Shanahan, and then the Bengals. And the
Yeah.
Bengals have, just really been a gold mine because Joe Burrow likes to check down so often. We saw it with Joe Mixon, even when he wasn't very effective or efficient, he was still a really good fantasy producer. So that's where I'm at with Brown. 4.8 targets per game since becoming the starter last year. It's yeah, I mean, I've pushed him into the top 24, even though I'm like really excited about Taj Brooks and think that he could cut into his workload a little bit. Where we're at right now, it seems like unless Brooks really makes a push, Brown is probably looking at a very similar role to last year to open things up.
And that's the key for me too, Jacob. This role that he was in last year, I was skeptical he would return to it this year at the beginning of draft season. I'm not so skeptical of that now, and you did a great job of breaking down why. And I do like Taj Brooks just as much as you do, but I don't think this is the year where he really cuts into it. I think Moss would have cut into it more had he been healthy and fully ready to go. And as for Samaje Perine, like, I don't know if you're the Bengals, if you can afford to take Brown off the field on third down for Perine, who's this like third down specialist, but it's like Brown is a good contributor on third downs and gives your offense a dynamic player that is a mismatch if the defense is playing man coverage on third down. And Samaje Perine's not a mismatch on third down. It just gives you that extra advantage. You take him off the field. He looked good in the preseason in the first few snaps I saw from Chase Brown. I feel like he bulked up a little bit in a good way. He needed it. And I was skeptical of his draft capital, Jacob, though I loved his tape. He was one of my sleepers in that draft. That's just like, yeah, I really just fourth round draft capital and only 1 year of workhorse workload. And then he just did it. He did it last year, right? Like he proved I can play in that role, that workhorse role. And I have been chasing, Jacob, every single year, these Christian McCaffrey light type players, the people who are involved in the passing game. As we've seen in the NFL, passing numbers have plummeted for running backs. Targets, everything, receptions have all plummeted. So when you can actually find these guys right now, and it's why, I'd be honest with you, I still have Christian McCaffrey ranked in my top 5 players overall, and I'll probably get him in a lot of auctions. I'm going to try to be smart with it, Jacob, and not overexpose myself due to his injury history. But when you can find these players who are involved in the passing game at running back, it is becoming rarer and rarer. And yet, as we know, targets are worth so much more than carries from a fantasy standpoint. And all of us, obviously, this applies to PPR and half PPR leagues. In a standard format, I don't know if I'd put Chase Brown as a breakout, but most of us these days are playing in some form of PPR. And if those of you listening are, he's definitely a breakout for me.
Yeah, even in standard formats, targets are worth more than running back rush attempts. Even with non-PPR, a target, not a reception, a target is worth more than a
Okay.
rush attempt. So what I've got pulled up here is an article by Ryan Heath. He looks at when players have typically broken out, which you see here. I wanted to bring up as we transition from our first player to our second player. Chase Brown already had the breakout in year 2, which is where most breakouts come for running backs, year 1 or year 2. If they haven't broken out in the first couple of years, that's a red flag, generally speaking. He also has the running back fantasy performance by career year compared to their career baseline averages. And so you see here, we're right in the money zone. Year 2, year 3, year 4 is when you really want to be targeting running backs. At wide receiver, things look a little bit different. And so we're going to talk about Rashee Rice next. At wide receiver, 34% year 3 breakout rate. So you're looking generally more at year 2 and year 3 than you do at running back, where it's more year 1 and year 2. And so we've got
I like
Rashee Rice heading into year 3, which is the prime breakout year for receiver historically. And then here's the same thing where it's like comparing to their career baseline. Year 5 is your best bet at hitting a huge season, and that's followed by year 6 and then year 3 in terms of probability of having an outlier season compared to your career baseline averages. And so Rice fits in perfectly here. And then everything about his profile we really like. We talked about we've talked about it a few times now. I would definitely check out the per route primer that we put out. It's like this stat helped identify Puka Nakua and Nico Collins. That's the title for that one. We go in depth about Rashee Rice and like how his role is catered to beat modern defenses in the NFL. And if he's healthy, which all reports are pretty good so far, he looks good, then I think he's just going to crush in that role. So the only remaining thing that I have as a concern is how much are the missed games going to affect him? We're looking at probably 6 games as I think the max.
Max.
So I think just last year provided us a really good use case for this in terms of how to look at this with Rice. So
Mm.
Ryan did another awesome article called Anatomy of a League Winner, and he's looking for players who hit at least a 55% playoff rate, which is a stat that he made to designate who is helping you get to the fantasy playoffs. So they were on at least 55% of ESPN playoff teams. Cooper Kupp was one of 5 receivers to hit that 55% rate last year, and he was around 5 draft price, Cooper Kupp, and he missed. So he had 32 PPR points in week 1, and then 8 in week 2, and then he didn't play from weeks 3 through 7. So that's 5 weeks without him, and one where he only scored 8. So that's like replacement level waiver wire points. You're basically looking at 6 missed games, which is what Rice is looking at. And Kupp was on 56% of fantasy playoff rosters. The other one is Nico Collins. He was on 55% of playoff rosters. He missed weeks 6 through 10, so that's 5 weeks.
Mm.
I think that's basically where we're at with Rice. So can he replicate their point per game production? Then Kupp averaged 18.4 PPR points per game in weeks 1 through 14. Nico is at 19.5. So that's the range that we need in terms of points per game to stomach the missed games and still have a league winner. And he's going in basically the same range that these guys were drafted. Nico was drafted a little bit earlier than Rice is. And we could even see his draft price drop when the news hits, depending on if it's 5 or 6 games or whatever. So we're looking at 18 to 19, 20 fantasy points. In games that Rice has played at least 3/4 of the snaps, he's averaged 20.8 PPR points per game. Wow. So I do think that he fits the bill. As we talked about, I think all of there's more target competition now with Xavier Worthy and Marquise Brown there. I think those guys are lid lifters. I think they only serve to help. I think Hollywood is basically filling the Justin Watson role, and Worthy is going to be an expanded version of like what MVS gave them. Like I think those guys will help take pressure off of Rice to be like the only guy and to open up even more space over the middle for him to work.
So with Rice, let's get into this because this is one I'm not going to say I have any pushback on, Jacob. And let me be clear about something. Rice was my most drafted player in all of fantasy last year. I had him on my 3 biggest rosters, and unfortunately he got injured. I loved him going into last year. My only pushback for this year, and I'll reference, by the way, this auction draft I did 2 nights ago a few times on this podcast because I saw some of the listeners yesterday saying we need to get into more auction content. It's not something we really do a lot of at FFT. Maybe at some point, Jacob, we can do a whole episode on that or something along those lines. But a player that we're very different on as it relates to Rice is Xavier Worthy. I'm very high on Worthy. You're not high on Worthy, and I know that from your updated rankings. So in the auction, Worthy was nominated just before Rashee Rice. They were nominated back-to-back. I bought Worthy at $13, and I couldn't pull the trigger on Rice, and he went for an insanely cheap price at $9. It was partly because I had already won Worthy, and I didn't want to go back-to-back Chiefs just like that. Major regret of mine. Rice ends up being by far the best value in that auction, and I think a lot of people are going to be scared to draft him in auctions, and it could carry over to snake drafts because of the suspension. We don't know how many games it is. Like you said, it could be anywhere from 4 to 6, I would bet, but who knows? I think you can replace that value by I think people in general overrate suspensions and miss time with less so with injuries because injuries could reoccur, but suspension specifically as it applies to Addison Rice. My only issue with him as a breakout, Jacob, is I think a lot will change from last year when he dominated as a Chiefs receiver to this year. First of all, the usage for Xavier Worthy in those first games before Rice got hurt was very different than his usage down the stretch. And I wonder how that will impact Rice this season. Two, and I know we differ on this, but I'm buying into the Kelsey in his best shape, back in good shape stuff. And I know we're very different on this. And if Kelsey is in good shape, Jacob, I think he could eat into some of that middle of the field role. It's just something I'm going to be on this year. I know it's speculative. I know we don't know, but I've watched some of the clips of Kelsey out there. I think he's moving better. And so it's something I'm concerned with. So will Worthy's role change, and will Kelsey reclaim some of that role that Rice just simply dominated last year, especially if Hollywood Brown is healthy and kind of taking over that like Xavier Worthy field stretcher role. So I just think there are more moving pieces in this offense than last year. And when Rice just simply was just dominant, because there, in my mind, there was really no one else to go to. Kelsey was a shell of himself, like you've gone over last season, and Worthy was just not knowing the offense well enough to do much during those Rice games. So that's my one pushback. I definitely won't have him as ranked as high as you, but I want to come around to this because I understand how great he was last year, and I understand that I was super high on him going into last year. So I can get on board with this. I'm just probably not as high as you are on Rice.
Yeah, I mean, just he's a special player. Watch the per route data primer. He's like top 5 in basically any per route number. I even removed the screens from the data set to see what he was like, and he's still top 5 in yards per route run over the past 2 seasons. And Kelsey was pretty effective when they were making their Super Bowl run 2 years ago, and still Rice was like
great,
the clear alpha
as a rookie too that year, right? Yeah, down the stretch. So, yep, great point by you. I need to fix this one. I feel very unconfident by not being super high on Rice, and I'm mad I let him go in that auction. But we're going to take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsors, and we'll get right back into it with some more breakouts.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. So even if you can't count on accurate expiration dates,
that is a rookie mistake,
or people appreciating your fashion sense,
Jim, the crowd is not on board here.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS, streaming on Paramount Plus.
Glad we wear our good jerseys.
Yeah. All right, let's get back into this thing with a player that I will definitely be agreeing on with you, Jacob. I believe he's the most mispriced player in the entire fantasy pool, the most undervalued player in the entire pool. I actually had to overpay for him in this auction due to a situation where not enough money was being spent at the top, and that led to this end of range draft where players were being nominated and there was too much money left. And I didn't care. I paid the price because in my rankings and in yours, he's worth the price that I paid. To most experts, it looks like the worst buy of the draft, but that's not how I view it. And that player is George Pickens. I think by far and away, he will be my most rostered player this fantasy season.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Dak Prescott, that makes sense to me because you're so high on Dak. We both think Dak is really, really good. And he's going to be something that Pickens has never had in terms of his ability to throw accurately and with anticipation, and just like really hit him exactly where he needs it. And that's going to be huge for Pickens because he's not a huge separator. On that note, though, I'm going to share my screen here I've got from Matt Harmon. So I made a thread. You definitely check this out if you're curious. It's it's Nico Collins, Tyreek Hill, Calvin Ridley, George Pickens. There's a bunch of interesting players here. And Pickens per Matt's charting, and this is basically what I've seen with all the yard per out run rates and everything as well, is that Pickens has steadily improved year over year. And Matt's got that as well. So Pickens came in and pretty much was like dominant against press coverage right away. But he's added some nuance to his game where he's like winning on slants now. You see 82% success rate on slants. I can't recommend enough receptionperception.com. It's so cool. We're starting to see him add nuance to his game that could allow him to access a higher ceiling than just the perimeter-oriented deep threat stuff. And that's really exciting. I do think he's going to be the X receiver for Dallas, but I think with a variety of ways in which he can win available to him now, and with a quarterback who is great in the improv game and can find him and put the ball on him. I'm very excited about Pickens because he's also, this is the most underrated part of his game, I think. He's also a really good tackle breaker. I don't think people realize that because they think of him as like the jump ball winner. So this, to be clear, this isn't the top of the list. There were players above Juwan Jennings here, but this is the range that George Pickens fell in last year. 10 avoided tackles, which is like above Josh Downs, above some
Yes.
some players you wouldn't necessarily expect. Demario Douglas, some of these shiftier guys. Look at his avoided tackle rate compared to Amon-Ra St. Brown, Juwan Jennings, Josh Downs, Justin Jefferson, some of these guys in the same range as him. He's legitimately good, and you see it on film a lot where he catches and then just like jukes people and moves in ways that you would not expect at all for his size. I'm curious, do you have anything to add? Because I think you might be higher on him than me.
I am even higher on him than you are, I believe, just from looking at your latest rankings update, though you have him now way up high as well. And what I love most about George Pickens, and I hadn't rostered a lot last year because I did like his talent, but I felt like he took that major step forward despite being in Arthur Smith's offense last year. And I watched a lot of Pickens tape because I had to watch a lot of Russ tape when the Giants signed him. And what I like most about him is on those in-breaking routes that Arthur Smith loved to use him on, he creates a lot of separation. Like, you think of this guy as just some guy that's a vert receiver, right? Plays on the outside, can make all these plays above his frame with his hands, throw it up to him, jump balls, 50-50s, a Romo Dunze type, right? No, he creates separation on the underneath stuff and on the in-breaking routes. And like you said, he's surprisingly good after the catch. The stats bear it out. The tape bears it out as well. He's got acceleration after the catch. He's got moves after the catch. He understands how to manipulate space. I think he understands space really well. And I think his hands are phenomenal. There's really nothing about his game I don't like besides maybe just the raw straight line speed, which I think he makes up for with his ability to stack receivers vertically on the outside and win in those ways. And the reason I love him most, outside of just believing that he is one of the better players in the fantasy pool to be ranked as low as he is, just straight up from that standpoint, is that I think back to the early days, Jacob. I'm talking about when he was healthy. Michael Gallup on the outside for the Cowboys, how Dak Prescott maximized the talent like that. He's a 10 times better version of Michael Gallup, even in Michael Gallup's prime before the injuries. And I just feel like that fits so perfectly well with Dak Prescott's skill set as a quarterback. What makes Prescott good, and it's why a lot of people, I think, Jacob, underrate Prescott and view him as a bad quarterback, is that he's one of the best processing quarterbacks in the NFL, and he throws with anticipation and keeps the plays on time better than most quarterbacks. And what does that mean if he's that good of a processing quarterback? It means that he will recognize every single one of those situations where Pickens has a one-on-one because the safeties are shifting post-snap to take away CeeDee Lamb on that play or whatever they may be doing, rotating down to stop the run. And he will attack. He will go after it. He is not biased. He's not leaning on CeeDee Lamb. There were even times throughout their tenure, Jacob, where I saw some scuttle about, after the games about CeeDee Lamb, like, I'm not getting enough targets. And it's like, Dak's like, yeah, I mean, like, look, dude, the targets aren't supposed to come your way when the coverage is shifted and rotating in that way. I'm going to go to the best option and the open option. And when it comes to that option, it is going to be George Pickens a lot this year. I am so excited about what he's going to do. Best quarterback play of his career and best quarterback fit.
Yeah, I think the Dak point is really important because like Russ was great at hitting him on these sideline throws, which Pickens eats on.
Yes.
I think Dak is going to unlock this next level of his game. That's why I talked about his yards after the catch, is because I think Dak can hit him in the places he needs to be to catch and go. And I think Pickens is a lot better at that than people realize.
Yep.
And he's playing for something, he's playing to prove something. He's
Contract
playing for contract. And so they could, if he's like locked in a way that we haven't really seen, like we know the talent's there. And if the offense is good, people can't focus on him because of CeeDee Lamb. Like this guy was really, really good as an 18-year-old at Georgia. Like we really don't know how good he could be. I'm taking him a lot. I'm very excited about the upside here.
The other thing with Pickens, just to name one more thing. Sorry, did I cut you off there?
He just clearly fits the league-winning profile, and there's not that many picks in the round 4 through 5 range that I like, and so it feels like a risk and a reach. But like, I want to bet on that. I want to be aggressive in betting on that.
The reach I'm going to keep making. And one more thing I really like about him is since he entered the NFL, and a lot of this has to do with his quarterback play, he hasn't scored a lot of touchdowns, and the Steelers just don't throw a lot of touchdowns. But as a freshman, like you mentioned at Georgia, he had 8 touchdowns. I feel like his touchdown number is such a lock to jump with Dak Prescott and potentially a bad Cowboys defense, or at least a bad Cowboys secondary. It's just another reason I love him for this season in fantasy. But we do have to move. So let's get to the next player. We're going to do 2 more before the next break. This is a player who moved up rapidly through your rankings in your first update to now as I'm going through them and editing them to get on the site. By the way, for those who don't know, you can find Jacob's rankings on Sportsline. So obviously, I don't want to give it away, but you can also kind of find them if you sign up for the newsletter for free there. But you can sign up for Sportsline and find them there, and they'll be updated throughout the season, throughout this offseason. The half PPR rankings are updated now, the top 150 overall. Head to Sportsline, you'll find that. But I will be updating shortly after this podcast his positional rankings and salary cap values for half PPR leagues updated through today. And one of those players that jumped the most for you is DeVonta Smith. This is not a player I'm huge on as a breakout this year, even though I love the talent. So I want to hear your case for why you moved him up, and does it have any impact on your A.J. Brown ranking?
No, it doesn't have any impact on AJ Brown. DeVonta Smith, the reason that he's been moving up is because there's so much contingent upside. Obviously, if AJ Brown or Dallas Goedert were to miss time, we've seen the splits with Smith where he puts up much better numbers. If Saquon Barkley were to miss time, they would throw a lot more. And just in general, they're going to throw a lot more. Where they were at last year was a historically low number. Like, I think one of the bottom 5 number of dropbacks in recent years. It's going to increase. And so that's with Smith, as I compare him to like Garrett Wilson and players like that, there's upside for him to tap into a lot more than what he's projected for, what's currently on his plate. And he's an ascending young talent and I think an elite talent. Whereas somebody like Garrett Wilson, who I think is an elite talent, we're basically projecting him at the very tippy top of what he could be. Like, I don't see how it gets any better. If Justin Fields like completely blows us away and is something we've never seen before, but like he's already projected for the 30-ish% target share numbers. Smith is projected for what, like a 22% target share? He's capable of having a 30% target share. He's really that good. That's what he was at Alabama. The stat I've got pulled up on the screen, wide receivers who created multiple steps of separation on the highest percentage of their routes run last year. DeVonta Smith, number 3. The 2 players ahead of him are Baltimore Ravens. So I do think that surrounding offensive environment affects this. DeVonta Smith is ahead of AJ Brown in this stat, but that's exactly where he is that he plays on this offense where you can't focus on DeVonta Smith. He's way too good to be in that type of a situation. He can burn you any type of way, and he can make any type of contested catch. This guy's so good. So now I'm pulling up here. I think this thread is really interesting. I compared the primes. So like I said, Ryan gave us this compelling data here on like how receivers are producing at different age intervals relative to the career baselines. And so his research shows that age 25 through 29 is a prime for a receiver. Pretty intuitive. I looked at what we've seen over the past, since 2000, dating back to 2000, in terms of per route data, and then also just like raw production. And DeVonta Smith pops up as really high in the per route data because he's just entered his prime and his per route data recently has been very good. And so I just wanted to point that out, that like he's entering his prime right now and in a great offense and everything is like positioned for him to be very, very good. One last data point I wanted to point out is the cleaned up version of yards per out run. If you remove screens, sacks, scrambles, even if you don't remove screens, just remove sacks and scrambles because there is no target on those plays. And so yard per route run rates get bogged down a bit by them. AJ Brown is the one who pops here at the top because his yard per route run rate is higher than anyone's by a wide margin, and he's extremely good. But don't sleep on DeVonta Smith down here at wide receiver 9. He's top 10 in any of these cleaned up versions of yards per out run. He really had a phenomenal season last year, and I think it just kind of flew a bit under the radar, and people are just kind of like fatigued of like taking him in round 3 or 4, and so he's kind of fallen. People are just kind of bored with it, but it's like he just had the best season of his career. The only real concern I have is the offensive coordinator change. The last time we saw, before Kellen Moore, it was pretty bad. But I do think he's so good that things could break his way in a number of different ways, and I'm totally fine taking him in a range where I don't have a lot of other players that I like.
So my quick take on this is I think he's a very good bet to be a great ADP value. Is he a bet for me to be a breakout? What concerns me is not the player. I think all the stats you just broke down, Jacob, were excellent. But to me, they just show me that he's an amazing player and really good at what he does. But for fantasy, I need a great environment to go along with a great player. I mean, Josh Downs is a phenomenal player, and I'm worried about drafting him because I think his environment's so bad. And when it comes to DeVonta Smith, one, I'm worried about the coordinator change. Kellen Moore used more tempo. Kellen Moore's a great coach. Their new coordinator has been with the Eagles since 2021 and apparently is a big Nick Sirianni guy. Don't love that, Jacob. The other thing is, while I do agree with you, it's very hard to imagine they don't throw it. They have anywhere near the low amount of dropbacks they had last season. I mean, look, Jalen Hurts threw for 2,900 yards last year. That's insane. 3,800 the year before, 3,700 the year before that. It will go up, but how much will it go up by, Jacob? The reason it dropped was, one, Saquon Barkley and the offensive line reached levels that nobody, and I mean nobody, could get to from a run game standpoint. Is that going to drop off? I'm not sure. But two, and more importantly, in 2023 and 2022, they had issues on defense. In 2024, last year, their defense became the best in the NFL over the final few games of the season. What if that carries over and their defense is just the best in the NFL for the full season with Vic Fangio? Everyone says with the Fangio system, and when Fangio comes as your coordinator, it takes 10 to 12 games for everybody to get on the same page in the secondary. They're bringing back everybody, basically, besides one player on the edge. I don't know, man. I think it could be very similar to last year at the end of the season. And then I think we're looking at like a 3,000-yard passing season, and there's just not enough for me to see the full breakout. I think he easily outperforms his ADP, but I don't know if it's enough for me to be a breakout. So he's just not my guy. Let's take a quick break, and then we're going to get into the next breakout player, somebody I agree with you. But we ran a little long today, and we're running a little long, so we'll speed it up through the rest of these. All right, let's get into another player. This one we're both in on, though. I think offensive environment question marks are certainly bringing his ADP down. And it's Zay Flowers, the wide receiver from the Baltimore Ravens. I'll let you start here with Zay.
I just did want to say on Philly that I do worry about their second cornerback spot a little bit. I don't. If the defense, I think I thought you were going to say the defense could step back. I've seen people speculate on that just because it was like historically good. You're fine with it?
I think they were only historically good for the end of the season. They had a roughish start to the beginning. I think Fangio, and I just have a different opinion on it.
Yeah. Well, if Fangio isn't just magic and like it does regress at all, I think they could get into shootouts, and that would be another potential source of upside for the receivers.
Agreed.
So Zay Flowers, today we're just kind of we're bringing up some players that we don't talk about as much, and that I think maybe the fantasy community at large is kind of overlooking. That doesn't, I'm not guaranteeing you that DeVonta Smith is going to have some huge breakout. I think the reason a lot of these players are overlooked, Zay Flowers probably not going to have a huge breakout, is because they're not, positioned to be like the Drake London, where it's like this could be and probably will be huge. But they could have a big season. They could sneak up on people in a way that you might not expect. Flowers was much better in year 2. Yards per out run, everything across the board. What I've got here pulled up is separation score per fantasy points data is charting. Went from wide receiver 16 in average separation score in year 1 to wide receiver 5 in year 2. If you look at the second half of his second season, he was significantly better than the first half. He was wide receiver 1 in separation score down the stretch. Same thing with his per route data. 2.27 yards per out run last year was way up from his rookie season. But he only scored 4 touchdowns, so it goes under the radar. I don't think he's probably going to be a red zone target anytime soon, but he definitely has the athleticism and the tackle breaking ability to create touchdowns outside of the red zone. And so that's where I'm at with Zay, is like he's attached to a great offense. He continues to get more and more reps with Lamar Jackson and Todd Monken, and he looks like he's turning into the top of the range of outcomes that people could have outlined for him when he was drafted in the first round. He looks like he's turning into a really good player. And so I'm fine taking a shot on him for cheap, given that framework.
Yeah, I'm with you on Zay. And this is one I'm definitely more in on. And I think all it really takes is a little bit more touchdown luck with Zay. That's what's held down his fantasy value. He's clearly somebody who's really good on tape, really good by your metrics and the numbers. And someone who, by the way, at Boston College, when I watched his tape, dude, he was putting on some nasty double moves on the vertical plane. So I just feel like from what I've seen of Ravens tape, him and Lamar haven't been on the same page on the vertical plane at any point in their career. If that changes, and with more reps, that very well could, that's what changes his fantasy value. Just 4 or 5 more touchdowns for him, and he is a breakout, a easy breakout, because he's going to get the receptions, and he's going to get the yards based on everything we've discussed. So I'm more in on this one, I think, just because, again, I just have this I feel like the Ravens are more willing to be pass first, even with Derrick Henry, just in that Munkin system. And I just kind of trust, I'll be honest, Lamar Jackson a lot more as a thrower than I do Jalen Hurts. So it just feels a little bit better to me environment-wise, though I think Smith is a better player.
Yeah, and I don't think, I mean, 4 or 5 touchdowns is a huge add. I think he could get there with just 2 or 3 more touchdowns if he takes a step forward in year 3 like he did in year 2. And it doesn't even have to be as pronounced of a step. If he just continues to improve steadily, say his yard per route run rate pops up to 2.4, 2.5 or something like that, then suddenly you're looking at like 1,200 yards.
Sure.
That's I think the use case for Zay Flowers here, even without any like huge increase in touchdown variance. But if both happen, then all of a sudden, yeah, you've got like a huge season potentially.
Let's roll forward to 4 more breakouts to close out the show, 2 of which I'm highly on board with you on. I'm curious to see if you can guess which 2 those are. One is obvious, but the other one may not so be. And 2 that I'm open to hearing your argument on, because both of them, I'm not saying I don't believe they're breakouts. I just want to hear what you have to say, give my own pushback, and then have you fire back and maybe convince me. So let's start with the first one you want to discuss and guess if that's one of the ones I'm definitely in on.
Jaylen Waddle, I'm going to guess no.
Oh, I'm sorry. There are 5 more. I missed Waddle. So there are 5 more. I'll say 3 I'm in on then. And Jaylen Waddle is one of the ones that I am in on.
Love to hear it. Here's the Jaylen Waddle resume prior to 2024. 18-year-old breakout at Alabama. Highest career yard per route run rate of any wide receiver drafted 2020 to 2025. Third-year declare, 6th overall pick, 1,000 yards as a rookie, wide receiver 8 in Tennessee in year 2. Year 3, career best yard per route run rate. It just kind of flew under the radar a little bit, injuries and everything. And then we get last year, this season from hell for the Dolphins, where everyone got dragged down. I've watched all the film, and I think Waddle is very good still. When I cleaned up the per route data to remove sacks and screens and stuff like that, Jaylen Waddle had a higher yard per route run rate than Tyreek Hill. And if you look at the players that he's in the same range as here, look at the target per route run rate, 20.5% for him, significantly lower than everyone else in this range. So that tells me he's a very good player to be producing this efficiently without the targets. What if they design more targets to him? And then it's mainly just, even if you don't think he's going to have some huge increase in targets or efficiency or the offense improving or anything, he's just cheap. He's so cheap. I've got from Hayden Winks here. This is 4for4 has this where you can chart or track ADP data over the course of the whole offseason. His ADP has barely crept up at all following the Jonnu Smith trade. Less than Devon Achane, less than Tyreek Hill, which is crazy because those players had more room to go up than Waddle did. He was basically being selected in the same round. This is a tweet from July 6th. Here's the updated version of this.
Wow.
So you can see, about 3/4 of the way through here, at the bottom, you can see the dates. This is about when Hayden made the tweet. It's gone down since then.
Wow.
I think he's such an easy bet to make. If you believe in the player at all, I know he's been frustrating, but I mean, there's not much else compelling in terms of upside in the range that he gets drafted in.
So a few things on Waddle, and I want to start with the 30,000-foot view, which I like to do. I don't know if we do it enough. I want to bake that in more to our podcast. As we go through this, I really like the bets on all of these breakouts in this range, Waddle included. And I wonder, Jacob, especially when we look at this thing and see that most of our breakouts today, especially in this range, are wide receivers. To be quite frank, actually, they all are, except for one of yours that I want to maybe have some pushback on. It makes me think that my draft needs to be more running back heavy at the top. because I know that I could, especially in my auction leagues, Jacob, I could essentially buy all of those players that we just went over, DeVonta, Flowers, and Waddle, at a really in the teens, in the low teens for some of these guys. One of them might hit, like, if you get it in the right auction and money's been spent and people don't have it at the time, you maybe get single digits, $9-8 for a couple of these players, or one of these players, right? You could build out a receiver core with those three as your wide receiver 2 through 4 and feel pretty good about that. If even just one breaks out, right? If 2 break out, now you're just hitting money and you've invested your big money. And if in snake drafts, it works the same if you go running backs up top. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, does this impact at all what you want to do at the top of your drafts? And I know you don't play in as many auctions as I do, but let's say for your snake drafts.
I definitely want to get a running back early, whether that's Achane or Genty or CMC or Bucky Irving or someone, even Josh Jacobs, somebody like that. Chase
Or if you have a
Brown.
high pick, Bijan and those guys, right? Yeah.
Yes, but I am taking CeeDee Lamb over those guys, so
Okay.
I don't get them all that often. Chase Brown is another one. We do have 2 running backs we're talking about, with one of them being Brown. But I also do think it's really important to prioritize wide receiver early. If you look at the episode I did with Ryan Heath looking at where breakouts have come from, it's the one where it's like looking at historical data and math to find league winners. It's really important to hit wide receiver early and often, because you can find running backs a bit more late. Receivers, it's been really hard to find league winners late. Yeah, I'm typically going like they've barbell is the way they've described it, where it's like early and late at running back,
Okay.
and not a whole lot in the mid range.
And that's typically where I am at it with it too. I just feel like this year has a lot of receivers that I like in this cheapish range. But
Yeah, I think part of it is like a lot of the running backs that we could pick. Like I asked you beforehand, I was like, "What do you think about Trey Benson?" As somebody we could talk about
right.
today. Is there any reason to like analyze them as breakouts? They almost need an injury to
Sure.
be relevant. That's just where we're at. Is like we
I
have a
agree with that.
lot of stalwarts at the running back position that have survived, and we'll see
Right.
which ones fall off. Whereas receiver, it's like, okay, things could go his way, and he could have a really good year. He's a really good player. All right, let's talk about a running back. It's Jaylen Warren. This is
This
gonna
one you're going to have to sell me on a little
yeah,
bit.
I think a lot of people are gonna feel the same way. So it's a year 4 breakout is what we're talking about here. Jaylen Warren had 784 rushing yards in year 2, only 511 last year. So not a super productive player, not someone who maybe fits the archetype of what you'd expect from a breakout. But we have our concerns about Caleb Johnson. We had them before he was drafted, and he didn't look great in the preseason. Don't know if he can stay on the field with Aaron Rodgers
Right.
as a pass protector and pass catcher. It's possible. I think there were some flashes of him doing both of those in college,
Yes.
but we'll see how he's able to acclimate as a rookie. Warren didn't even play in the preseason game. He seems to be the starting running back and will probably enter the season as a starting running back, could play a significant role, which we've never seen. He's never got a start.
Yeah.
I believe in the guy. I really do. I think he does everything that you could possibly ask of a running back. As a pass protector, he's a gritty guy. He fights for every yard. That's how he's made a career for himself as not athletic late round running back. I think was he a UDFA? I think Jaylen Warren wasn't even
Might have
drafted.
been. He might have been undrafted. Yeah.
I think we're talking about an undrafted guy who, since entering the NFL, is running back 6 in yards after contact per rush, running back 1 in avoided
Yeah, he
tackle
was
rate,
undrafted. Sorry.
running back 6 in yards per rush, and running back 4 in success rate. While playing on offenses that aren't all that successful, his success rate is way higher than Najee Harris's during that time. So top 6 in all the metrics I just gave you, and that's with playing through knee and hamstring injuries last year. You see his efficiency fell off in a clear way. Before that, he was averaging over 5 yards per carry. He's truly been one of the most effective running backs in the NFL on a per touch basis since entering the league. He's also running back 7 in yards per route run and running back 3 in first downs per route run out of 61 qualifiers since entering the league. Only Nyheim Hines and Christian McCaffrey are the only running backs ahead of him in first downs per route run. And so to me, if he can play even 55% of the snaps or something like that, then you get a win where he's going. But what if he plays like 65% of the snaps? What if Caleb really is not able to be anything near the Najee Harris level of trust that they've had? That's where the upside starts to come in. Warren has had 6 games with a snap rate above 50% where he's received double-digit rush attempts. He's averaged 16 PPR points per game. He's had double-digit PPR points in every single one of those games. So that's where I'm at with Warren. Is I think there's a real chance that he is the guy that Rodgers prefers on the field. He's earned the trust of the coaching staff as a pass protector, and he's been a very, very productive player when he's been given opportunities.
You made a very strong case, Jacob. I'll just push back only in one way, and it's that I was not along the same lines of you when it came to Caleb Johnson. I liked his tape at college, and most importantly, he reminded me so much from a draft fit standpoint of a player that I was really high on, a 5th-round pick from years ago when an amazing rookie season, Jordan Howard, who played in the Big Ten as well at Indiana. And the reason I loved him was because he was coming from that outside zone blocking scheme, very, very specific at the time. Now more teams are running it in the NFL at the time. The Bears, who he was drafted to, was one of the few teams that were running it very exclusively at the time, and he was amazing in it in his rookie season. I'm like, wow, Arthur Smith really loves to lean on outside zone. This seems like a perfect fit for Caleb Johnson. But I will say this, I don't want to be too swayed by it, Jacob, but I feel like I can't not be. I didn't love how Caleb looked in that preseason game, man. He looked really slow out there. And maybe that's just that he doesn't trust it right now. But the question is, how and when will he trust it? And so I'm more and more willing to drop Caleb than I ever was. And if I am, I have to be moving up Warren. Like, it just, like you said, it's so easy to see how he returns value on this ADP. Breakout, that might be a little bit different. But let's transition into our next breakout player here. And this is another player who I want to see if you can guess if it was one of the 3 remaining that I'm in on the breakout for.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, who is it?
Tucker Kraft.
No.
Oh, wow. That surprised me. I feel like he's such an easy player to be
Everybody loves him, it seems like,
Yeah.
except for me.
All right, what I've got pulled up on the screen here, best yards after catch per reception through an initial 2 seasons of a tight end career dating back to 2000. We've got Tony Gonzalez data, and we got everybody in here other than Mike Dicker or whatever. Rob Gronkowski 6.2, Evan Ingram 6.4, Aaron Hernandez 6.5, Noah Fant 7 yards after catch per reception through the first 2 seasons of his career. Travis Kelce 7.2, Tucker Kraft 8.5, George Kittle 8.7, minimum of 50 receptions. Really, really good player. And this is this is a blind spot for me because I liked Luke Musgrave. I thought Luke Musgrave offered a lot as an athlete, and that there was a very high ceiling for him to be somebody who can contribute in the red zone, can contribute down the seam. And so I kind of overlooked Kraft as just like the blocker of the two, and then people were like, no, I'm telling you, Tucker Kraft. I'm like, basically I looked at him and I'm like, he has to put up insane efficiency if he's going to be good for fantasy, because he doesn't create separation. All he does is catch and run. So like, what is he? Is he going to be David Njoku? And people were like, yes, he's that good. And the more I looked into his collegiate data and his data as a pro, it's like, okay, actually he does belong in that discussion. And so I do want to give him his flowers here because he's been freaking phenomenal. And you and I are both extremely high on Jordan Love, and Love has talked up Kraft as being, what if he could get more targets? What if he could get different types of targets down the field and stuff like that? I think that he could handle it. I think he's really good. Entering year 3, he fits all the parameters that Ryan set for league-winning tight end. Ryan said that 12 out of 13 league winners came from offenses where there were not multiple other pass catchers being drafted inside the top 60. So we're looking at like ambiguous target distribution, but they do need to come from good offenses. That's exactly what we've got here. Like, what's Matthew Golden's ADP, like 80 or 90 or 100 or something like that? They don't have anyone in the top 60. They don't really even have anyone close.
Good point.
And so that's where I'm at with Kraft. That's where I'm at with Dalton Kincaid, who's the next one, and people are not going to like, but it's the exact same thing where it's a good offense, prime breakout age, and there's definitely target ambiguity.
Well, you sold me on Kraft because I'm in on Kincaid, and it's really interesting, man, because when it comes to the tight end position, there are so many bets that I want to make outside of the top 10 in consensus ADP rankings. So I just don't know if there's any other way. And in this auction, things went the wrong way, and I got priced out of players I wanted. Drake London, really wish I spent the extra $1 or $2 there. Lost a couple key bidding wars early. And so I was in this position where I had extra money, so I bought Brock Bowers. But I did then come back and draft Tucker Kraft for $1 and our boy Loveland for $1. And I'll figure out what happens there. You can play tight ends in the flex in that league. But when it comes to Kraft, You sold me on him. My one concern is, and I want to make one thing clear, by the way, I was a huge Luke Musgrave fan. The issue with Musgrave is injuries. Injuries have derailed his NFL career, and they were the issue with him at Oregon State as well. But in his rookie season, he looked like the better of the two of Kraft, and he was separating and he was creating. We did it beyond the box score where Love missed him on a huge seam, but like he looked good out there. Who knows if he's just like what's going to happen with him moving forward. But when it comes to Kraft, my one concern would be, and you kind of quelled it with that talk of just the ambiguous situation. My one concern would be, where are the, like, is the target volume going to be there just based on what I've seen from this offense? How much more run heavy they become with Josh Jacobs. And maybe that can be quelled just by the simple thought of, well, Jordan Love was playing hurt last year and they altered their game planning to fit that injury. And now a healthy Jordan Love means more volume for everyone in the pass game. So I'm willing to take that one on. As far as Kincaid goes, he was a player I loved the film of when he was coming out. I'll give you my quick case on him. And then everything I've seen since he came to the NFL is dealt with injuries and an offensive coordinator who has no interest in using him the same way he was used at the collegiate level because he doesn't fit what they want to do, which is a very run-heavy, play-action-based scheme. Now he's entering this year healthier than ever and could be an 8 to 10 touchdown guy. And I've seen that throughout practices. He's been a big red zone target for Josh Allen so far. So I'm back in on Kincaid at his price. And I want to hear your case for why you're in on Kincaid.
I don't want to be in on Kincaid, honestly.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I've got him barely above consensus. I have him at tight end 12. But I do want to point out that he could be a breakout. He fits the mold perfectly. If the Shakir injury causes him to miss time, or if Shakir re-injures the ankle or anything like that, or if they simply just design more of the offense around Kincaid, if Kincaid is healthy all year and doesn't have the injury in the middle of a season like he did in year 2 that disrupts things, that he could get there. He definitely could. Like, who else is drawing targets in that offense? What do you think of this range that I have here, where it's like, I think after Njoku, there's a drop off. Would you change anything here? Is there anything stand out clearly? I've got Njoku and then Kraft, and then Jake Ferguson, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce. We don't have to get into Kelce. Dalton Kincaid. Tyler Warren, would he creep up higher? Evan Ingram?
Yeah. Ingram, Warren. I mean, my tight end rankings are the weirdest rankings. The least. Let me see how I can frame this correctly, Jacob. My tight end rankings follow consensus the least of any of my position rankings. For example, TJ Hawkinson, I have down below basically everyone you have highlighted there. Actually, definitely below everyone you have highlighted there. Njoku, wow. I have below everyone you have highlighted there. Njoku, I'm willing to reconsider if Flacco plays all 17. If we go to Kenny Pickett or Sanders for any of that, or Gabriel, I just don't want anything to do with a player like David Njoku. Brendan Strange, I like a lot. I don't know if I put him over those players up there, but I do like him a lot. And Ingram, same goes for Ingram, Hunter Henry. I mean, I look through this list, man. Ertz, I like Ertz. I don't like, for me with Ertz, it's like he still should probably be pretty close to what he was last year, given that their offense is the same as last year. So I just look through these rankings, man, and I just don't know how I can feel like I missed at tight end in my drafts, as long as I wait and wait and wait and wait. So I will never draft any Sam Laporta. I will never draft any of those guys in that round 4 or 5 range. I think those are some of the worst picks you can make in fantasy, going round 4 through 3, 4, 5, 6, 3 at the tight end position. So yeah, I don't know how much I would change that. I feel like we're pretty spot on there. We both have an insane expectation for Colston Loveland this year that I don't think will be met, because I also have him ranked the same spot as you. But other than that, yeah, it's pretty spot on for me.
All right, one final breakout here.
Yeah.
Everybody knows who it is.
It's our boy.
It's Drake Maye. It's got to be. You might be sick of hearing about Drake Maye. I do just have a couple 6 stats I want to throw up here for you. Drake Maye gained 10 plus yards on 33% of his runs.
Wow.
As a rookie, dating back to 2000, only one season ever for a quarterback has been above that. Michael Vick in 2006.
So he's the real Vanilla Vick. Remember they were calling Daniel Jones that?
Yes. Truly, like, huge rushing upside if he gets designed rushing work in Josh McDaniels' offense. Here's another one I found. I was curious if I removed runs where 3 or fewer yards were needed to get a first down. If I removed that, what Jalen Hurts would look like without the tush push stuff. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, wow, look at these Drake Maye numbers. They're ridiculous. So it's like rushing leaders on runs with 4 or more yards needed to gain a first down. Drake Maye averaged 8.4 yards per rush, 28% avoided tackle rate than anybody other than Lamar Jackson at 31%. Lamar averaged 6 yards per rush on these runs. Drake had a 62% success rate on these runs.
Whew.
Truly like phenomenal at converting first downs and doing what is needed. And this is the exact same thing that we saw from him in college too, where he had just like great situational awareness. He finishes forward. He's
Love
super
that.
athletic, more than people realize. I really think, if Travion Henderson is as good as people think, Kyle Williams, man, I'm obsessed with Kyle Williams
so
after one
good.
preseason game. He looked better than he did in college, and I really liked his college tape. And I don't overreact to it because it's just one preseason game. I don't even think he played very much of the starters at all. But man, like no one could stick with him in one-on-one situations. And so if he helps the offense, if Stephon Diggs actually had some decent data last year when he got to play. So if either of those guys help the offense, if the offensive line is any better, if the coaching is better, if Travion is a huge upgrade, any of those things could help Drake Maye. And Drake was pretty good on a per dropback basis in terms of fantasy points last year. I think he was like QB 14 in fantasy points per dropback.
Yep.
What if these things come together and just elevate that? Like it really could be where it's like, this is the clear league winner. Everybody knew it. There's a reason that all your favorite analysts call him their sleeper QB this year. I feel like it could be a huge season for him.
He fits every mold of a breakout. Except for, and there's one thing that you discussed it with the running and his ability to create those kind of scramble off script runs. But there's a good chance that we have more on script runs, some design runs that we didn't have for Drake Maye this year. And I want some people to understand this. He's the closest thing besides Justin Herbert, who is actually the closest thing. So he's the second closest thing from a frame, size, and athleticism standpoint to Josh Allen that we've had since Josh Allen. Again, Herbert is actually the closest. And from what I've heard and just knowing Josh McDaniels and that Patriots way, Jacob, I think we're going to finally see Drake Maye used as a red zone runner. And if that's the case, dude, if he is taking zone reads in the red zone and we get up to 6 to 8 rushing touchdowns, that's it, dude. Like he is a lock top 10 quarterback from a scoring standpoint and likely higher. So it's the one player that I'm willing to go all in on at that quarterback position. I made a mistake in that auction the other night. I had a very strict plan at quarterback of just letting it all fall to me and not spending more than single digits on any quarterback. And I ended up with guys I like, Stroud and Lawrence, at $9 a piece. But I got in a bidding war for Maye and I backed out at I think it was $13. And I regret that now. I wish I had spent that extra money to get Maye instead of a Stroud or a Lawrence. So very high on him. Very excited. Those are our breakouts for today. Jacob,
I got one more thing to add on Maye.
Okay.
Just as it pertains to his ability to really run a good offense, all the things I mentioned could help elevate it. He was also extremely good against pressure. He was QB 13 in catchable ball rate when pressured. That's just throwing. That doesn't include all of the added value with his legs. And that's really hard to do as a rookie. Jaden Daniels was QB 24 in this stat. Good for a rookie. All the other guys, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, all outside of the top 35 in catchable ball rate when pressured. I really think he has the potential to like do all the things necessary to move the chains, and it could culminate in a big way.
I absolutely love it. Those are our breakouts for the 2025 season, not including rookies. You can hear us talk about wax poetic about rookies anywhere you go. Please hit the like button right now. If you haven't already, hover your hand over that mouse. We need a like. We need a comment too. Yesterday's show, I thought it was a really great show, and that's not being humble at all to even say that out loud, but I felt like we put a lot of work in and we delivered in a good manner. I didn't love the comments. We didn't have enough comments on that show. Please leave us a comment, even if it's just hi, or even if it's just Dan sucks and look at Dan's stupid fridge. I don't care. Juice that algorithm up. I'm all about juicing the algo. We need to get this in front of more eyeballs. We like what we're doing, but we need more people to follow along. And look at that Mortal Kombat shirt by Jacob. I love that. It's good. Went from Pokemon yesterday to Mortal Kombat today. I'm repping an old school Fantasy Football Today shirt. All right, that's all we have for you today. We'll be back tomorrow with Dave Richard. I'm really excited for that show. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.